So I am. It's been a while since we've talked. I'm really excited that we're getting back into this.
Me too. It's been too long, my friend.
I trust that Minnesota is treating you well.
So far, so good. No snow on the ground yet, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I think we'll be here before Halloween.
So I mentioned before the thing that I'm absolutely most excited about is for the month of September, I was going to start a new course every month. And this month it was scheduled that Stage Academy presentation and keynote skill course. And I had a sense from the ad that's being good, and I'm getting pretty good at accurately telling that this person's skilled and this is going to be useful, and that kind of thing. And diving into it, like, holy crap, it's even better than I thought.
Oh, really?
I'm so freaking excited about it. Uh, it's very direct and to the point, but it's kind of like the real masters are able to get the most effectiveness in a short amount of time. There's this saying, I think, that the longer you take to explain something, the less you probably understand it yourself.
I can see that. Learning how to be concise with your words.
You can get more meaning in each word if you're very precise with them. So the pattern he does is he goes through and he'll explain, uh, like, there's a general genre of topics, a general genre thing you need to get good at, and then he'll go at different subparts of it, and he'll go, okay, theory, example of someone doing it bad, example of doing it something well, and you're like, oh, holy crap, it's so night and day. And then he'll go
That's
into tangibly actually how you should practice that skill to develop it.
that sounds like a really good way of illustrating each lesson and how much of an impact it makes on the final product.
That actually is one of the big parts of it. There's so much in the example. The old phrase, like a picture's 1,000 words. The example of a bad presenter or a good presenter, there's so much shown in that. It's not just showed how to do it right or how to do it wrong, but like you just said, there's holy crap, this is how it impacts me. This is why I want this. This is when I'd want to use this skill.
One of my favorite quotes is, "If a picture is worth 1,000 words, video is 60 frames a minute or a second, whatever it is. How much does that make a video worth?"
And that has been coming up over and over. I still am very impressed with how much value there is in video, but uh, the audio is what got me all into this. Nearly a year ago, it was last November that I started on all this. I bought a microphone, not a camera. And
Absolutely. I know I've talked a lot with you about Brian Brushwood.
mm,
Uh, One of the things he said is people will forgive bad video quality, but poor audio quality, they will lose interest faster than anything. That's the thing that you need to focus on the most is audio.
that is proving to be so true. And that wasn't obvious from the starting point.
No, it's so counterintuitive. You think the eye is always what catches you, but I guess the ear is what keeps you.
In a lot of ways, true. So getting into which is most valuable and how they relate to each other, we're going to come back to that a little bit later on. But it was just a hit for me of this, videography and the editing and all that stuff. It really enhances everything. It's so impressive. And that's still 100% true. But it's coming back to me for at least the things that you and I are interested in. The speaking is number one. Uh,
Absolutely, I can believe that.
so I want to try and send you an example and see if we can get this to roll. There's
Here,
going to be
see
a
if you
lot.
can just screen share it with me or something.
We'll try it. Getting audio to go. Can I screw? Just close everything so I have less tabs.
No, I'd be embarrassed if you saw how many tabs I have open right now. It's a nightmare.
There's no way I'm gonna get this to work because it's on Instagram, so there's no pause button. So I'm just gonna send you the link by text. You can take a look at it, and I'll find a way to put a clip of this into the post.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll have it on my phone.
So before you listen to it, I just want to give the preamp. So what this is I was going through so many things. There's a lot. It's been about a month since we met a lot, and this was one of the high interesting things I wanted to show you. And what it is such an example where the editing, there's hardly any. There's only 2 cuts in the entire thing. The video quality, trash. The guy's just using a crap phone, not trying to do any framing or anything. And all of those definitely can ramp things up to the moon. But this didn't need it because, in my opinion, it just relied so much on a good idea and incredibly good presenting. So what do you think when you take a look at it?
All right, let's take a look.
X9, how many beers do you take in the shower with you?
Just one. Just one beer. This is my favorite beer. It is 8.2%, so one is enough. But just in case one's not enough, I bring the whole 6-pack. You know, you never know when you're gonna want 2, but I never end up drinking the whole.
Your Zodiac sign.
Okay, I can see what you're getting at there. That's very good.
And with editing, every time it's done well, you don't notice it. It just gives you an emotional impact. So it's kind of hard to even learn it because the things that worked, you don't ever, they're invisible to you. And for this, kind of the same thing that I just like, man, this is such an impact. I love this and doing so much with so little. But after going through the first half of this presentation course, I know what to look for now. And I see a lot in what that guy did. I'm like, oh, this thing and that thing and that thing. It's like freaking black magic. I would have never thought to learn those things or attempt those things. But this guy for the course that I'm taking just spilled it out right in front of me, like giving you Jack's magic beans. And it's like, holy crap, the amount of effort to get such a huge impact. It's amazing.
All right, so walk me through what little things did he do in that video that are great lessons that you've learned?
Well, one of the massive ones is changing rate of speech. He starts off with kind of like a little bit slow, very typical hello, this is what, and then he kind of slowly ramps up the rate of speed, and then he like slows it way down. Then there's also pausing. Before he like goes on, he has a very long pause. That's one of the more difficult things to actually do. And when we come back to this in 2 weeks, I want to talk more about how and why, but just a quick overview. Like these things, they all come to the concept that the teacher says, use all 88 keys of the piano. The amount of rate changes you use in your speech, the amount of timing you use, the amount of pitch going like higher and lower, and several other things. People usually are either stuck at one note or just a small band. And if you get in the habit of just stretching your legs, like all of this, like, okay, this is where too crazy is there and too crazy the other way. But once you touch that, the range that actually is just interesting, you realize is a lot bigger than what you've been doing every day.
That makes sense. Okay. I see what you're saying. Just having that variance in speed and pitch and everything just is something different to help keep their attention and keep them engaged in the content.
Even just a conversation with friends, I've noticed the more I'm trying to do this, it adds more emotional impact. My friends are they're great people. I appreciate them so much. They'll give me their attention no matter what I do. Well, not that's not true, but just being the normal me, I have their attention for as long as I need. But this
Right.
has made like the jokes more funny, the stories more impactful. There's just so much more emotion in that they feel and even I feel while telling the stories.
I mean, that makes complete sense to me. It's making you a better presenter, help drawing them in more, and then they can fully appreciate how fun and engaging you can be.
Mm.
You had all these skills before, it's just helping you make the most of those skills and make people understand and appreciate them more.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I think you're kind of right. I think we both have a very good amount for like, beginners on this. This guy's just showing that all of these things, you can take it from this range to even larger range. And the amount of reward you get out of it, it's like 3, 4, 5 times. Spread that across all the different skills, you're getting maybe like, a 200 level, 200x improvement.
I mean, that makes complete sense to me.
So we'll have more time to talk about that in detail. Today, I'm just trying to get a big overview to get all caught up, because there's so many things, and I ought to have more time for hearing your stuff too. But what this led to was I had that immediate hit of like, man, this is so impactful. How critical is it to get perfect at editing or videography or drone skills before I dive more deeply into this? My really big goal is I want to make an online Irish whiskey tasting that people could share during the holidays. I saw that last year where they're advertising all these things, and it's like seemed like a really nice Christmas present. I'm like, I would love to be doing that. By next year, 2023, I want to be making my own, and that's been a goal that's been on my list. But I was thinking about this, and then I had this unexpected lesson that I got from the stuff I've been studying the last couple of weeks. And it was how little flaws actually detract from what you have. So I was watching one of the tutorials the guys from the videography course was doing. And I noticed that there's like a lot of flaws on the edging of the text that's going behind his head. I'm like, that's super blurry, and I can totally see that. And I realized, one, even though I see it now, it absolutely removes zero of the emotional impact. It's moving. It happens for a fraction of a second, and it's part of like the weirdness of life you're comfortable with. And if I hadn't already taken the course, I would have never noticed in the first place at all. And that has a lot to do with
even if
that.
you notice that sort of thing, I feel like it almost makes it feel more genuine. It makes it feel like it's not a big production, big company. It makes it feel more craft almost.
That's a good point. There are times where that feeling of extra sincerity.
I mean, I've
Better.
seen shows where they start off small and then they grow in popularity, get a bigger budget for it, and it almost feels corporate by the end, and it's not the same fun show that it used to be.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. The one other angle of what one of my courses was talking about is there was a time where literally like that guy just having your camera in the shower, that's the appropriate, if you had all the money in the world, that would be what you want to do. Because you're looking for a level of sincerity that couldn't come from having the look of somebody who had taken some time to plan it out ahead of time.
Oh yeah, you don't need it to look like there's 5 cameras, stage lighting, and this is all just a prop set.
So that's another topic I'm looking forward to discussing more of how much mileage we can get out of choosing what the exact level of production should be for the target we're doing. But that experience, that surprise lesson made me realize there's so many things that the minimum requirement to be good is, it's not always a 10 out of 10. So I started really thinking about what's the level of talent and all the different skills going into these things I'm trying to do that are required to do what I want to do. I started looking up different people that I consider successes. There's the instructors for my videography class. His name's Anthony Gallo. There's this yoga guy that I really enjoy so much. His presentation just looks like radiant, and the way he talks about topics is so somehow maximizes 10 out of 10 rigorous science, but also really kindness and like, hey, if you want to try some woo stuff, that might work out too. And it seemed impossible to get both of those. Anyway, I went down a whole list of those people, and I plotted out radiographs of how good they appear to be at all the different topics that are going into this. So like presenting skill, videography, audio, lighting, editing, a few other topics. All these things that I'm busting my ass trying to study to get good at. And I noticed that there's so many of them where they can have maybe, you know, 1 or 2 stars out of 5 in video or audio and still make it something amazing. But the consistent thing is if the sound quality sucks, you're dead.
Yep.
If your story isn't interesting, it's a struggle, but you can kind of get away with it. But your presentation skills, that is almost consistently number one. Every person that was great or way better without the other skills, it was because of that one.
That makes perfect sense to me. They're the ones that people are going to be most engaged with are the ones who can actually hear what they're saying and the ones who are able to engage and keep their attention.
Yeah, that's you keep saying that, and actually makes me really want to ask you about that. How much do you think the value is between holding someone's attention versus making the feeling they have more intense? Like if there's a level where they're already going to stick with you, is there any benefit of having them feel even more intensely? You already got them.
I think so. Now, I'd say it depends on how long your content is going to be. If you're making an hour-long program, yeah, there's probably going to be some points in the middle where you can just make it dead air and they're not going to notice. But you want to reel them in, especially towards the end, so that way they want to come back for the next one.
Man, yeah, you always have great ideas.
If they're losing interest and you end on a down note where they're not paying attention, they're not going to pay attention to click play next episode.
So it's not just it's the answer is 5 or 10. The answer is, well, at this point in time, yes. At this point, one different one, it changes.
Once they've invested, I don't know, 3 minutes to 5 minutes, if it's a 10-15 minute video, they're probably not going to click off of it. But if it's not engaging at minute 13, 14 of a 15-minute video, chance of them going, oh, I want to hear more about this, seems like it would be less.
And it could also be there's a threshold of maybe this level of enjoyment or emotional impact. You know, you hook the beginning, so they'll stay for the whole 20 minutes. But maybe there's a level that at the end, it was enough to get them through 20 minutes. They stuck with you the whole way. But they're not going to opt in for watching the next one. But if you can get
Absolutely
that intensity way more than you need, but up to a higher threshold at the end, it's like, oh, hungry for more.
I mean, I still think of all the TV shows where they go, next time on the A-Team, and it just shows you a 30-second montage of cars flipping over and gunfire and Hannibal saying, I love it when a plan comes together. And that's every episode. That tells you nothing, but it's exciting and you want to watch the next episode now.
Yeah. I kind of, you put it that way, reminds me that a big part of why I love about this so much is when you develop these good speaking skills and to a similar extent, these good videography skills, you're actually reminding people and unlocking people how much they love something. I don't think I would take credit for saying I made them happy or made them love a thing. We're just able to unlock the love that was already there. So they're getting in touch with what they actually are really excited about in the world.
Absolutely. It's very hard to get someone excited if you're talking like this is your job working at the DMV and just next, I don't care. I want to clock out and go home. If you're not excited about it, they're not going to be excited. Having that presentation skills and keeping them engaged and involved with it, they're going to be excited and engaged and wanting to have more content, wanting to interact, leave comments, that sort of thing, I imagine.
So moving on, that kind of drove home the pieces that are needed and more critically, how much I was overshooting the level I need to be at to do a lot of things I want to do. That definitely ties back to like your discussion of do the 85% of what you can do right now. And what I was talking about, where try to make a complete program or project or one-off thing, but just do it from start to finish and see how much you actually needed to know to do it, the entire thing that you love. So I started thinking about my main goal for the year, which is creating that online Irish whiskey tasting. Started looking into it, and I realized two things. One, I have a lot more of the skills that I need to do it than I thought I did. I don't need to be 5 stars at videography to make that go well.
No.
Definitely, I'm glad I got some. This is going to be way better with my 3 stars than it would have been like 1. But I don't need to get to 5. And for a lot of the other things, we're doing pretty good. It seems like the bottleneck is definitely going to be the presenting, and then the unknowns. So as I was mentioning, I had planned next month to start doing this course for my October course, one each month, was this thing by the same videography people called 30-Day Course Creator. And I realized that I should start building that skill sooner than waiting till October, because the bottlenecks aren't so big on the videography that I need to keep putting time on that. The bottlenecks for this will be pretty huge. And then I looked at the whole dates, like, well, I'm not selling this for Christmas. You have to sell it on Black Friday. And then realized, well, on Black Friday, it can't be done. You have to have weeks before to actually, market it and have advertisement and, try to get some kind of social awareness of it. So the deadline that I have is pretty much the end of October. So if I waited till October started to even learn how to do this, like, oh, I'm so seriously boned. So that's how I shifted into what I'm doing right now. Is I'm doing 2 courses at once, then I'm going to spread over 2 months. So yeah, it's a little intense, but it seems to be really right. First of all, I've been learning a lot about the value of sacrificing things in order to guarantee you do the thing that you really care about most. You notice from early on that I had a bunch of things that I was trying to work on, and it was just overwhelming. When you suggested I should just get something done 85% of my ability, I started noticing that meant I would cut a little bit out. And then when I would pick just, okay, here's 1 or 2 things, they'd get done well, and I'd also learn faster. Every time I've had a really big stress out, I look back and realized it was because I was trying to do too many things at the same time. The brain's a lot better at learning one thing at a time and just learning one after the other. So slowly I'm getting better at learning that skill.
Well, I'm very excited to join in on the Irish whiskey tasting course that you're planning, and I'll make sure I promote that as much as I can up here.
I have so much I want to ask you about that and get your advice, but today we can just get an overview and that'll be enough. But there's a lot of things I'm looking forward to talking about you going forward from that. So I'm glad we kind of got you up to speed on all the things that have changed in my world. But right now, working hard on knowing enough of this whole program, because it talks about the business side of it as well, so I can at least put my schedule together. Between working together, I feel like I've really learned a lot about how to sacrifice and just focus on a couple things that you commit to get them done well, and then come back to the other things later. The extra videography things, I have that in my schedule for January now, instead of doing it now. I'm looking forward to it. But now it would be not the right time. But also
learning those priorities and what takes priority for you right now to meet a goal you have. That's a great skill to have.
Yeah. You love all these things, but you don't have to do them all today.
No. Fingers crossed we both have some time left. We'll be able to get a few projects knocked down.
So I'm getting on that right now so I can learn enough to know how many things I have to cut out, how much I need to how much socializing I can afford to do, how much side stuff I can afford to do. once I have that plan, then I'm going to start going back to the Stage Academy presentation training. I'm loving that a whole lot. And it definitely seems to be one of those things you learn like a seed, where the sooner you start learning, the more chronological time you have to digest it, the more you're going to get out of it.
Sure.
And when I start in probably about a week diving into planning out the Irish tasting, there's going to be a whole lot of what they call market research, where it's asking people like, well, you know, what are you interested in and what do you like, and getting like a larger idea of that from other people. There's so many questions I'm going to want to ask.
And please, anything I can help with there, let me know.
All right. Hang on one second. So I'm really looking forward to talking more about all the business stuff I'm learning from that. But, you know, we'll have to save that for later. Just tell you that there's so many things that kind of we figured out together, but they're getting a deeper level of it. So it's this kind of rewarding thing where they'll say something like, oh yeah, I know, that's great. But then they'll like, yeah, and if you really like apply it full time, like, oh, that's even deeper. We can get more out of this. So that's pretty exciting. Pretty much every day I'm running into like 3 or 4 things that I just want to tell you and my other friends all about. And I'm just trying not to spam everybody, especially because I'd rather tell you first when we're talking like this.
Fair enough. I was going to say, feel free to spam me, but I understand wanting to save it for this.
I do want to ask you one question first. I hit one wall where I realized that the program they're teaching me through is designed for...
You're breaking up on me. Hang on.
Okay.
All right,
Still
try
there.
saying something now.
How about now?
All right. Video's a little off timing, but at least it's not a jumbled mess. Sorry, start over there for me.
All right. So I wanted to ask you one question. When I was getting into this, I realized that the program I'm going through is designed for teaching courses. It's designed for teaching functional skills. And I realized what I'm wanting to offer, it's not really a skill, it's an entertainment. There's some ways I could tweak it where I'm teaching someone how to perform a whiskey tasting, but the real goal of all of this isn't to make money or to be a faster runner or something you can get a merit badge on your chest. It's just to have a great time over the Christmas with yourself or your friends. So that got me thinking that I'm going to want to try to start running some of these in person.
You're breaking up again.
Oh.
All right. I think you're froze. I think you're back. Okay.
Okay.
That's probably my internet. It's pretty spotty in here.
Yeah. The solution that I am working on, it records them both independently. So if our quality is kind of choppy, just not like we can hear each other, then when we send our 2 halves back afterwards, we'll have flawless video and audio in post.
Oh, that's good to know. The hard part is just understanding each other then if it gets choppy.
Yeah, that's all we got to worry about. So I was thinking I want to start doing some of these whiskey tastings in person. That'd be a great practice for me to get better at what I'm doing, but also probably the best way in the world to do that market research. I'm going to have live people there and go, okay, what were your favorite parts? What were the parts you disliked? What were the things you felt missing? And I can start to understand what the real demand in the real world is, instead of just going, this is what I like doing. I don't give a crap about anyone else.
I can appreciate that.
So a little bit more tangible with that. What's the legal limits on doing something like that? I walk into somebody's house for a Christmas party. I bring 7 bottles of whiskey and I start pouring tastings. Do I need a license? Is that technically selling alcohol?
So what I would tell you to do is something that a few other whiskey somms do professionally. They will have people pay them to come talk about whiskey. And because we're talking and friends now, I will share my whiskey with you. You are not paying for the whiskey, you are paying for me.
Okay. Nice.
That is how they phrase it, they make that abundantly clear at the start of every tasting, so that way they have no legal repercussions. I don't know if that works in every state, but it seems like a good theory to me. The other thing I've heard them do is they'll have the people who they're giving the tasting to bring the supply the alcohol, and you're just showing up and talking and using it, and then you leave the bottles with them afterwards, which can be fun if they have if they really enjoy the whiskey that you're selecting for the tasting, but otherwise they could be stuck with something they don't like.
Yeah. Yeah. This is extremely helpful. There's a very specific list of whiskeys I want to use. So being able to bring my own and take it back with me would be really huge.
So I would go that first route personally of you are paying me to come and talk to you, and now that we're friends, I will share my whiskey. I'm not legally pouring you whiskey as you paid me. It's now we're friends, I'm giving it to you.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. I'm feeling excited about this. There was a point where I realized, oh, I'm not doing a skill course, and I was a little heartbroken that maybe I went down the wrong path. I'm like, I'm learning so much from these guys. It'll definitely pay off, but who knows when. And then I started thinking, well, if I'm doing it in person for market research, even if I can't get to the last, 20% of this online thing, I'd still have a great learning experience from doing this, like guaranteed something I'd be proud of. So as long as I could at least do that part, I'd be freaking thrilled.
Oh, absolutely. Uh, I forget if I gave you this piece of advice from the other whiskey somms from the last time I went down there, but they also talked with me about how if you're struggling to hold their attention, you need to charge more. If someone's paying $200 to listen to you speak, they're going to listen to you speak. They've invested $200 versus if they are paying $10, well, okay, that's nothing. I'm gonna start talking and making jokes with my friend on the side and not really listen to you. You're only
Yeah.
worth $10.
We've talked about that where whenever we go out to a tasting and it's like a $15 one, everyone's like laser focused every single second. But then I'm having people at my house and I'm giving them, $50 shots and they're ignoring and just chit chatting because it's free, we're having fun. And that's how it's supposed to be.
There's a time and place for both. One of the things I really like that I heard another som do is they'll say, okay, we're gonna have a more closed tasting, and then afterwards, we've got all the bottles here. You paid for them, so they're your bottles. We can hang out. You can ask me more questions. We can just talk, have a great conversation afterwards, and be more loose. And we'll see where the night takes us from there. But for now, we're gonna focus in on the tasting.
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm excited. There's, like I said at the very beginning, there's so many parts of all of this that I'm struggling to just stay on one topic because I could talk for an hour, so excited hearing your ideas about all these parts.
The other piece of advice I'm gonna give you is decide how much you want your standard pour to be for a sample, and then for the love of God, get automatic pour spouts that measure for you, because you will spend so much time between talking and pouring the next round that they will get distracted. Being able to just quickly pour 4 or 5 glasses, here you go, it keeps it moving, keeps them engaged. You're not having to fight to keep their attention.
Yeah. I do have the pour spouts, but I want to talk with you a little bit later when we have more time about exactly how big they should be. Once I make the full plan and I know how many pours we're going to do, that'll affect how small they need to be so people can still concentrate to the end.
Of course.
One big perk I was looking for about the online version is I could make it a multiple day thing. The idea I was most excited about was making the online one and making it kind of like a 7 days of Christmas thing, where you go back to your hometown, you're with your friends, your family, like, okay, we're going to meet every day and we'll do 1 or 2 of the whiskeys. And okay,
Please.
I
please do this a couple years and then put all the years together in one package as an advent calendar.
Yes. That was in my head too. Whiskey advent calendar. You know,
That'd be so good.
there's so many things of this where it would be a great, career. It'd be great to learn this stuff, but every time it really comes down to like, man, I just feel so thrilled and satisfied to be part of this existing in the world.
Absolutely. I'm excited for it. And like I said, let me know. I'm going to jump on board it myself. I'll be there.
Appreciate it. I'm saving it for next time, but there's an awful lot of business things that this new course talks about. And so many of them I want to talk about as well. It ties in a lot of ways of why this stuff matters. That kind of meaning of life stuff that I told you is an exciting part of storytelling. There's a whole lot of it in this business stuff too. I'm really surprised. How do you feel about, sharing that kind of stuff on our podcast too?
I'll be honest, I don't know too much about the business side myself, so I want to learn it and hear about it. So please tell me about it. Yeah, I'd love to share it on the podcast and share whatever information I have, even if it's minute.
Well, one of the exciting parts of this is so much of it is about learning how to listen. One of the cornerstones is like, you're just learning how to be a good scientist, and asking you questions and just listening to what you have as just your thoughts and feelings is going to be 80% of everything that matters.
Good to know.
All right, I want to move on to one more segment before we get to Ryan's story. So I wanted to talk about an update on some of the exercises I was working on. And since it's been a little while, I can tie a couple together. And I noticed this theme where I had this most exciting euphoric feeling. There was a couple times, 2 or maybe 3 things that I was running into that were just hard, just agony. And I could tell I was super stressed out. There was one project, what I'll tell you about next week, but I was just staring at it for 10 days because I didn't want to do it. And then I forced myself to do it, like, pulling out a tooth, not enjoying making art. And after I did, I had learned enough that I got good enough that when I came back to it, I'm like, oh, now doing this stuff is fun. So the 2 sides of that is really hit home that, not doing so many things at once is a difference between this being a joy versus this feeling painful because you're overwhelmed. And the other thing that I'm freaking excited about is some of these things are actually getting to the point where I have enough skill that they're turning from a struggle to a joy. The 2 things were, first of all, was editing. I love taking the drone up and just filming things. I love taking a camera out and making cool video and like nice shade and shadows and lights and color. But editing it, hate it. It's this pit in my stomach. I had an opportunity recently where, I was actually sort of talking to the teacher of the film school. And he said, hey, I'm looking to hire people for my company for stock footage. If you've had any professional experience, which I now have, send me a reel. And I went through all of the footage I've ever shot since I've bought my drone and put it all together. There was many stages of this process, but by the end, when I was editing them together, I noticed I just had, I'm not thinking about how to put it where I want it to go. I know how to do that. It's kind of easy. And I'm not stressing out about, well, where should I put this? Why would it matter if it goes here or there or whatever? I already had a lot of ideas of things I've done before that I like, that feel like a flow, that has kind of like a connected meaning to it. So I had noticed it in hindsight that I was enjoying this. This felt like playing music where we'll put this here because I like the way it looks there and it feels good, and going on and on.
You learned all your chords and now you're finally being able to string them together and make your own music.
It's a relief, and it feels so much better. So I'd also made a plan that I'm going to try and do a summary of every month so you can see the progress. You did a good mention, like, show the bad stuff so we can see how it got better over time. So I'm putting together June when I first got it. Here's everything in June kind of compiled, and I'm slowly working on that. And doing that compilation, it's actually enjoyable to do now.
That's great, man. I'm excited for it, and I want to see some of those.
The next thing was the camera angles. There's a whole lot of complexity to that. So there's a whole lot of theoretical camera angles, but there's maybe like 10 primary ones. And then there's camera movements where it's like motion. You're multiplying everything by 1,000. And that is what stressed me out the most. That was really the thing that I was talking about. That was just that project that took me 3 weeks because I'd stare at it and be like, ah. And I'd force myself to do it. And it's just like, I don't know why any of this is right or wrong. This just feels like I'm blind and not learning anything yet. But did I send you the link for the making the tea?
For which one?
When I videoed myself making tea in my house.
You did not.
Okay, well, I will send you the link. But that was a project. That's the first exercise you're supposed to do in the film class.
I remember you talking about that, and I remember you were talking about how you were struggling with some of the shots just being by yourself.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Something that's already too hard, and you're like, if you could just get to one problem at a time, you would learn a lot faster. But I powered through it. And then when I did it, I kind of had like a sense of, okay, maybe I didn't learn the fast way. I would recommend a different way for someone else to learn this. But then I started asking questions on YouTube, like, okay, how about this shot? How about that shot? And then I got a sense, probably even more deeper than what they were talking about, of what each one's for. And now when I went back, it's like, oh, this isn't painful. This is fun now.
Now it's a chance for you to show off what all you've learned.
So this is exciting, just seeing that general process. And I'm looking forward to hearing about that, the next phase that you do in your creations. I feel like we're getting better at understanding how this whole arc flows. So we'll see it in every type of work we do.
I'm looking forward to it and look forward to growing and showing you. Now that I've got the lav mic out, I'm finally going to record that Pickled Blanton's video. Only, what, 4 months later?
There's kind of a beauty to it. Like, I'm going to come back to this again. The planting the seed, even if it feels like you're taking time away from something, the fact that you started this, that you had the balls to get started on this last year, all this time, even when you're taking a break, you're noticing things, you're thinking things, and you're learning a whole lot. So, you're going to have a lot of progress you didn't even notice.
Fingers crossed it goes well. I'm definitely going to be picking your brain on videography one of the projects I want to do is I'm finally making real progress, and I'm going to hopefully in the next, I'd say, month or two, I'm going to start releasing season 2 of my podcast. And I want to make a trailer reel that just highlights different points in different episodes. And I want to do some sort of animation of my logo getting a number 2.
Funny. One of the exercises that I went through was specifically taking a logo and animating it.
Okay, perfect.
This is exciting. Like collaborating, I feel like it's important. I really do think in the beginning it's important to work by yourself, to learn some things. But then after that, working with somebody else on something, learn so much faster. And this is going to be great.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, if I'm going to have a bottle that I set down and then it transitions into the drawn out logo that I have, or if I'm going to try and rotoscope my hand setting down the bottle, how I'm going to do that. But
we'll have to talk about that. It's like you were talking about with like the Little Indian, knowing how it works. There's many options that would be very easy and many options that would be very difficult. So it's kind of a question of, that wouldn't fit well into the podcast, but is that interesting to record for some kind of like a side channel? Or I guess the thing we're realizing is we're going to need to have time for actually just discussing and working outside of like whether it's entertaining or not.
yes.
All right. So doing good job of keeping us on a reasonable focused schedule. I like this. I would like for the last thing be Ryan's turn to tell us a story that we'll build on over the next couple of weeks to refine.
Okay, so I have two options for you.
Mm-hmm.
The first is an older story, how I got into whiskey. And the second is a more new story of how and why I moved to Minnesota.
I feel like I'd like to hear the second one.
I was worried you were going to say that because that's the one I'm less practiced at.
Good. The learning is what we're here for.
Absolutely. So I knew a few months before I moved that this was something that was likely going to happen. My fiance Ashlyn had been wanting to move back for pretty much the entire time she was in Nashville. She missed her parents and wanted to move back and missed her friends up here.
Mhm.
And so we started looking at apartments and visited her friend up here and found out that we like the complex her friend is staying in. Applied for a 1-bedroom apartment that was going to be on the 3rd floor. The night before I got the phone call saying you've been accepted for the 1-bedroom 3rd-story apartment. I get a text from my coworker who has 9 puppies
Mhm.
and says they were going to keep all 9 puppies, but they have since changed their mind. Would you like a puppy? And I say, oh fuck. I mean, are you sure you want to do this? You want to give away your babies? I'm going to give you every possible out because as soon as I tell Ashlyn there is no going back, we're getting a puppy.
Mm.
And she doesn't respond to me until the next day at about 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Yes, we're going to give away a few of the babies. It's very hard for me, but I want to make sure they're going to a good spot. Okay. How much do you want for the dog? My friend just got one for over 2.5 grand. I know they're expensive dogs. If it's something like 2-3 grand, then I have an excuse to not get this dog
Mm.
because trying to move with a dog, and now I have the phone call saying you've been accepted to the apartment on the 3rd story, 1-bedroom. That's not a good fit for a dog. And she texts back, of course, we just wanted a good home for him. Damn it, I'm getting a dog. Okay.
Hmm.
Tell Ashlyn this whole time she's thinking something's wrong. Like, what's going on? You seem very stressed. Something is up. You're hiding something. What's going on? And she goes, are we getting a dog?
How did she guess that? Oh, start your turn.
She guessed it because she thought that is the only thing that would make you stressed out but also happy. And so a few days before making the first drive up to Minnesota to drop off the unessential crap, as we call it, aka all of my bottles of whiskey, uh, we go in with her and pick up little Wesley here, who is not so little anymore, 37 pounds at the vet yesterday.
Oh, baby.
Yeah, for a 4-month-old dog, that's pretty big. Picked him up and then 2-3 days later drove up with him to Minnesota. Dropped him off at her parents' house since they already have 2 chocolate labs. We figured a third one wouldn't be too much for them to handle. In the meantime, though, I had called the apartment and said, hey, we just got a puppy. Third story, 1 bedroom isn't really going to work anymore. Sorry to have to do this last minute. Thankfully, we didn't sign any lease agreement or anything yet. And the young woman who answered the phone says, all right, I understand. Just so you know, it looks like we have a single bedroom townhome coming available. It'd be a week after when you were supposed to lease the apartment, but it's for about the same price. It's only like $50 more a month. And the move-in day for that townhome happened to be the day after our move-out day of the current apartment in Nashville.
Hmm.
And it is so much nicer.
Hmm.
It was. I'm still amazed at how well everything worked out. But that is how I ended up moving back to Minnesota and getting the lovely little boy who's sleeping on the couch here. Wesley, come say hi. Come on. Yeah, I know, I'm waking you up. Come
Yes.
on.
Oh my lord, look at that face. Hey, buddy.
He's a little sleepy.
Yeah. Good for him. Whiskeys and dogs. This is a damn good podcast.
Yes, it is.
All right, is that the full story? Should I?
That is the full story so far. Hopefully there will be more chapters to come with my time up here.
Yeah, I want this to be a good exercise. So reacting, good. Stopping you with questions, bad. So
Now, please.
now that's over. So the purpose of this is try to like build our storytelling skills. So I'm gonna give 3 suggestions. One, I think we could have more of a through line. From my understanding, you said this is a story about why I moved to Minnesota. The feeling was these are some steps that happened before you went, but there wasn't like a sense of a cause and effect.
That's true. I could have framed that story better. You're right.
This is why we're doing it on the fly, you know. So this is like on the fly. Next time I'll come back with mine actually framed up right. So that could work. More of a why, and I think it could be a matter of the time, the order they're done in, or just little twists you make on it. Like, okay, this led to that, led to that. Let us
The
go to
timeline
Minnesota.
could have been better on how I handled that too. I should have talked about Wesley. Sorry. I got a little out of order with some of the events there with hey, don't eat a book. No. Sorry, he's awake now. But my timeline was not exactly chronological, and that made it a little harder to follow with calling the apartment after I had already moved up here. That was one thing that I noticed. That was how I messed that up.
With the dog, was there any connection where having a dog prevented you from going, or not having a dog prevented you from going, and that changed anything?
I could have gotten into that. You're right. I was thinking it was going to keep us in Tennessee a little bit longer while we found a new place to
Okay.
live.
See, we're
And
going
then
that
that
direction, and then we
surprise
turned
of-
away, and then turned back to going to Minnesota.
Yep. I could have made that more of a roller coaster, and that would have been much more entertaining and engaging.
Cool. Yeah, actually, I think I'm liking this exercise more and more. Like doing it raw on the fly. We see the process, not just having polished things. Okay. The next thing is, I'm spreading out now and just of hitting both the story and the presentation, because now I'm getting my eyes open to the other part. I would suggest trying to stretch yourself more to speaking faster sometimes and slower sometimes, having more of a variation on that. The theory is you're supposed to speak slower when you're getting to something more important, I'm finding an even bigger bonus though, that when you need time to think, instead of pausing, you just slow down. It makes it flow a whole lot nicer. And 9 times out of 10, if you were thinking, it's because it's something important. So it actually naturally, you're getting the gravitas feeling when you're hitting something important. Every so often, I'll watch this teacher, and I can tell he just slowed down because he didn't know what to say next. We didn't go to anything important, but if I wasn't paying attention, I wouldn't have noticed. It really does both of those things of hiding a flaw, but also enhancing your strengths.
That is a very good point, and not something I've had to work on too much with my projects, seeing as I'm reading off a script and
Mm.
have a little bit more pre-production time put into it.
I think that'd be a fun thing to just try expanding a little bit.
Absolutely. Do a little more off the cuff improv stories almost.
I think they feed each other. I'm seeing that in every part of this. The one to like many marketing helps you better with your one-on-one stuff. So see, before this cuts off again, the third thing was I think we could polish up a hook immediately at the beginning.
Yes. Absolutely. That I think if I was to redo it, I would reframe it as here's how I got a dog while preparing for a 13-hour drive to move across the country.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, that sounds like a much more daunting task and very confusing and a little more interesting than here's why I moved.
Even here's why code moves could be good, depending on what kind of hook you use for it. But I think you have a lot of options on this. I don't know why I'm talking. You're better at this stuff than I am. So it's fun to bring
No,
it
I
up.
appreciate the spitballing and it's fun bouncing ideas off of each other. That's the great part of this.
So hang on to this. I actually love this to be the story that you work on because you're new in Minnesota. It's something I'm super curious about. So coming back to the story repeatedly and making it more of a polished gem, I think it's going to be fun.
Do you want me to keep it more rough and just as I retell it to you, it slowly gets more polished? Or do you want me to come back with a fully polished story next time?
So my plan is next time will be my turn and I'll do the next
That's
stage.
right.
And the next
The
stage,
time after that, then.
yeah, the next stage will be each of us just come with a beginning, middle, and end prepared. So you might think of, the hook, where you want to be in the middle, and then what kind of ending you want to have for it. And I'll do the same. And after we
Okay.
do that bounce and forth, then we'll actually fully write it out. So we have that stages of each one in between.
Sounds like a great plan to me.
It's working out. And I am really proud of myself. I will say that I looked up in some of these courses I'm in, and one drill they said was, for a lot of reasons we don't have time to get into, they said, do a really easy version of your thing, do a medium version of your thing, and then do it with all of your abilities. And you'll learn so much by hitting it at all those different levels of effort. And because each level is important. It's like, well, that's what I'm naturally doing with my friend Ryan. So I'm a freaking genius.
Perfect. Yes, you are.
Thanks, man.